Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Editorial Edge. My name is BhuvanAJha. Good morning, everyone, once again. I welcome each one of you, those who are connecting with me right now live and those who will be watching this class over the course of the day. So first, we have four articles. One that I had to include at the last moment because this is a developing story. A coup d'etat attempt has been carried out in a nation in Africa. So we'll take a look at all of these topics, but the primary focus will be on the first three. That is, now the House is in session, the monsoon session of the House is currently in session. And so a lot of bills are being taken for consideration, very important bills in fact, with far-reaching consequences. So we'll be discussing one of those today, which is the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill. All right. Second up, we'll take a look at cloudburst, because again, we have had many instances of cloudburst, not just in the Himalayas, but also in the Western Ghats, also in the northeastern states. So we'll take a look at what causes cloudbursts, what's the geography behind it. And thereafter, we'll take a look at mangroves, because yesterday, besides being the Kargil Vijay Divas, was also an important day from the environmental conservation point of view, as it was the International Mangroves Protection Day. Okay, so we'll take a look at what mangroves are, what's the function that they do, some important concepts that you ought to remember, such as blue carbon. All right, what's blue carbon and how does mangrove help in, say, blue carbon storage? We'll take a look at all of that. We'll take a look also at the map of India and figure out where are mangroves in India, what's the density, okay, which are the states that have the highest mangroves population or the expanse of mangroves within them. We'll take a look at that. And then finally, in the last one is where we'll travel to Africa and take a look at Niger. Now, if you have been following the news, you will know that a lot of countries in Africa, okay, have had these coup attempts of late. So besides obviously the factual analysis, the factual basis of as to which are the countries that have had coup attempts, you also need to understand the geopolitical angle as to why is that happening. Okay, because again, Africa has been traditionally, say, a playground of the French. You've also have had the USA that has come in now. The Wagner Group from Russia that you must be aware of has made inroads into Africa. China is also present there. So it's become the new playground of world powers, which is why you see a lot of political turbulence happening there. Okay. So we'll take a look at that in the dying moments of the class. Good enough? Okay. So we'll discuss the questions that I had put forward for you yesterday. Good morning, Deepak, Mandeep, Arka, Bulbul, Monica, Sai Krishna. Guys, thank you for joining. So happy to see you guys again. Okay. Welcome, welcome. So a lot of you answered questions of the MCQs that I had posted yesterday. So we'll take a look at the MCQs first and then those individuals who answered correctly. Okay. You might have had one or two questions wrong here and there. That's immaterial. The good thing is that you're attempting, you're learning. Okay, this way you'll remember. All right. So this is my Telegram channel, by the way. We have made considerable progress here. So if you're watching this for the first time, well, I can only request you go ahead, scan the barcode, be a part of my Telegram channel. All right, let's get into it. So yesterday we had discussed extensively a topic from polity, no confidence motion. Since yesterday a motion was moved by the opposition in the parliament. So the question that I had for you was, which of the following groups of motions are available to only Lok Sabha? Okay, which is the only the domain of the Lok Sabha. So no confidence motion, yes, obviously Lok Sabha. Adjournment motion, of course, Lok Sabha. Call attention motion is Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha. This is essentially to draw the attention of a particular minister to a topic or an issue of public importance. All right, this is available to both the members of the House, which is why this answer would be incorrect. All right. Thereafter, again, no confidence motion, LS. Cut motion is essentially a privilege, a particular power that is vested only in the Lok Sabha, where a particular demand that has been made for a particular project or a particular entity, the allocation of money, well, that is decided by the Lok Sabha. So you have various types of cut motions where they reduce the amount to, say, ₹1 only, which is like a protest that I do not agree with the particular policy, which is why I'm reducing the funding to ₹1. Several other cut motions, types of cut motions exist. You must be aware of those. Again, a particular right that is only invested with the Lok Sabha. Call attention motion, like I told you, LS plus RS. Okay, cut motion, LS. Censure motion is essentially to go ahead and reprimand or ask a particular question of extreme importance. Okay, you are censuring the government or a particular minister. So this is again available to the Lok Sabha only, because again this is seeking direct accountability from the government. Adjournment motion, 50 MPs backing, LS only, Rajya Sabha does not have it. We had discussed the differences between Rule 267, Rule 176 and adjournment motion. Therein we understood that Rajya Sabha, the rule 267, which has been turned down by the chairperson or chairman on several different occasions, well, it talks about the suspension of rules. Adjournment motion talks about the suspension of business, two different concepts, two different entities. All right. So this is correct. Option C is correct here. Option D again incorrect. All right, because you have call attention motion here, which is available to both LS and RS. Okay, let's move on to the next one. B, the motion of thanks. Now, very important, but a very simple concept. So you have the new government that is sworn in. Okay. So first, in the straight away, the joint sitting, the president goes, addresses the house. Thereafter, the motion of thanks is discussed. Now, if that is not passed, that amounts to the defeat of the government. It's equivalent to the no confidence motion. All right. So if the motion of thanks is not passed, well, it amounts to the defeat of the government. Absolutely correct. All right. No confidence motion is designed to test the Council of Ministers' collective responsibility that we discussed today. Okay. Rule 178. While privilege motion is to censure a minister. Well, again, this is correct, but only partly correct. Okay. Because privilege motion is not just the minister only, but also a group of ministers or a set of ministers. So if this particular question had only here, then this would have become incorrect. All right. However, in this current form, it is correct. All right. Privilege of the house has been breached by a minister. You can censure him. All right. Call attention motion is to draw the attention of a minister to an issue of urgent public importance. Correct. All three are correct here. Let's move on to C. So we discussed whips also yesterday. Whips, the individual who guides and in fact determines the behavior of his or her party members in the house. All right. So the whip has a lot of binding force on a particular member, except when it comes to the presidential elections. Therein the member votes according to his or her conscience. All right. In all other instances, the advice of the whip or the direction of the whip is binding on the member. All right. So the parties can issue whip to ensure attendance of members during NCM. Correct. Whips cannot direct an MP MLA to vote according to party preference in the elections of the President of India. Yes, because the party members are free to choose there. Of course, there is a procedural problem also. So you cannot determine the outcome of that through whips. Okay. And whips can direct MPs to vote according to party preference in the NCM. So the correct statements here being all three again. All right. Let's move forward. Okay, then we discussed the India-Sri Lanka relationship in an exhaustive fashion yesterday. All right, and some of the answers that I have received for your questions, the question that I posed to you yesterday, the mains question, I'm really genuinely impressed with the depth of some answers. Okay, but however, I would still exhort the rest of you. Go ahead, give me an answer for the yesterday's India-Sri Lanka question, because again, as you must have realized, that question has been asked in 2022. It has been asked previously also. And it remains a focus area because again, you're talking about the immediate neighborhood. Okay. So as a civil service aspirant, your goal should be to first know your neighborhood first. Okay. Start with Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, the BBIN, BIMSTEC, all of that, and then go on region wise, which is why India, Sri Lanka is of extreme importance to any serious aspirant. So go ahead, attempt that question. All right. So sea cucumber, dugong and mangroves can be found in the Gulf of Mannar. True. In fact, we are going to be discussing this extensively today. Sea cucumbers are benthic, which means they lie at the surface of the sea, at the sea floor, whereas their larvae are planktonic, which means they float at the surface of the sea. All right, they are floating with the waves. So this is again true. Gulf of Mannar Marine National Park is not by Sri Lanka, but by India. All right, so the correct statements here being 1 and 2. Yes, all right, let's move on to E. We discussed again deep sea trawling yesterday. Deep sea trawling, which is basically like a brush that you use to sweep the whole ocean for together. You know, that's the way of fishing. Well, again, absolutely disastrous for the marine ecosystem. So deep sea trawling does adversely affect the marine ecosystem and increases pollution, correct? And replacement of deep sea fishing boats can help reduce the environmental costs. True. It will reduce the environmental costs, but the infrastructural costs, if the question mentioned infrastructural costs, well, that would go up. Okay, because you're looking at more modern nets, more modern technology, that's going to be cost intensive, which is why we discussed yesterday that there should be a mechanism for India and Sri Lanka to come up and then make sure that access to these modern tech and modern nets is given to these fishermen from both sides of the border so as to address this environmental crisis. All right. So the correct statements here being again both. Yes. It will help reduce the environmental costs for sure. Okay. Finally, we discussed National Broadcasting Day yesterday. Vivid Bharati service of AIR focuses not just on Hindustani and Carnatic but also all other forms of music. Okay. So this is again incorrect because again the word has mentioned primarily, which means the sense of only is coming in. That largely it focuses on Hindustani and Carnatic. No, it focuses on all forms of music equally. Prasar Bharati is a statutory autonomous organization. True. Prasar Bharati comprises AIR, DD and PIB. Unfortunately, PIB is under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, a director, an independent body. It does not report to Prasar Bharati. Prasar Bharati only takes care of the broadcasting networks, which means its divisions are only two, All India Radio and Doordarshan. All right. So the third statement is incorrect. You have first statement that is again incorrect, two only. All right. So these were the questions that we had yesterday. Let's look at those individuals who got it correct. So we had Shubham, Tanu, Mandeep, Koder, Arka, Rajan, Evergreen. A person who did not have a name, but the username came up, so I've written that down, user, and Karuna. All right. Firstly, congratulations to you guys. I'm sure that you are benefiting out of all this intensive 1 hour that we do here. To the rest, may I implore you, make it an outcome-based learning process. If you're reading for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever time, you should be able to solve questions after that. If you're unable to solve questions, your time that you've invested in learning is not going to be productive. Okay. So again, that's not just limited to my class. Throughout your preparation, make sure that you are focusing on outcome-based learning, which means that you are going to solve questions out of whatever you have learned, be it in the answer writing form or MCQs. All right. And to the rest, again, go ahead, take part in this. This is going to help you. Okay. So the first topic for our day, the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill that is still in the House, passed by the Lok Sabha yesterday, now is going to travel to the Rajya Sabha and will most likely be passed there too and will become an act. Okay. Now what you have to understand is that it talks about forests. Now forests again are a very deep and sensitive issue in India. Okay, so let's first understand what are forests. So firstly, please understand that they are in the concurrent list. Straight away, you realize that there is a ministry at the central level, you have forest minister in the state level, which means the responsibility is shared, which means it's in the concurrent list. However, that change happened in the 42nd Amendment Act, prior to which it was under the state list. All right. So two things that you need to quickly have the basic understanding of, that initially it was in the state, now it is in the concurrent. Now, what is the jurisdiction of the State Forest Department? All right. So you go ahead, you clear your IFS examination, become an ADFO. So what exactly are you going to look at? What type of forests are you looking at? First is the reserve forest, where no rights are allowed unless specified. Okay. The best way to remember is through a single line. In reserve forests, you as an individual do not have any rights unless a notification to that effect has been issued by the State Department. All right. Whereas in a protected forest, none of your rights are barred unless specified, which means you're allowed to go ahead and engage in sustainable practices, okay, regulated manner, unless a notification to that effect has been issued by the State Department. Two kinds that you're looking at, okay, reserve forest and protected forest. Now the third one that is undemarcated protected forest. Okay. Now the problem with this is undemarcated, which means there is no demarcation. The boundaries are not clear. Now this becomes a source of contention between the Forest Department and the Revenue Department. Who controls that particular area? Because eventually it's about forest land. Okay. It's about land and say the resources that grow on it. So this undemarcated protected forests, well, they cannot be used for non-forest purposes without clearance under the Forest Conservation Act. Okay. Even though they are undemarcated, you'd realize that if you were to say change the nature of that particular land, okay. Suppose if you are going to make an industrial park onto it, you are going to need clearance from the MOEFCC, New Delhi. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change will give you the permission to change the nature of that land from say undemarcated protected forest to say a commercial land, okay, or an industrial land or whatever it is being used for. Are you able to get that? Lekam, good morning. Sorry, I missed your message. Okay. So now once you have understood that this is the problem, the three types of forests. So let's look at the forest conservation laws first. And the first one is the Forest Conservation Act of 1980, which this amendment bill is looking to change. Okay. So now what does this act say? Well, essentially designed to protect India's forests, it empowers the central government to regulate the extraction of forest resources. Okay, you know about the concept of minor forest produce. All right. What is the minor forest produce? All the goods, all the non-animal goods, in fact, the plant-based goods that you can take out of the forest without threatening the sanctity of the forest. So you're looking at stuff like wax, okay, honey, fruits, all of this you can take. Okay, bamboo you can take, because again, even though bamboo is classified as a tree, it essentially is a grass. Okay, one that you should know is, because again UPSC has asked this question, in fact they expect the student to know that even though the bamboo is a grass essentially, okay, under the Forest Act it has now been given the conservation status of a tree. Okay. Now you know that in the rural areas, people use bamboo for a variety of products, from their fishing to their homes, to even burning it. All right. So the nature of this, they are allowed to take bamboo from the forest. All right. From timber and bamboo to coal and minerals by industries as well as forest development dwelling communities. Now yesterday we discussed the Forest Rights Act, which talks about the interests of those individuals who live within the forest and on the fringes of the forest. And third, you have the National Forest Policy that you must be aware of, that it talks about the 1/3 of the total geographical area be under forest cover. Okay, 33% of the total area of India must be under forest cover. So these three become the primary focus of our attention now. Okay. Now please understand that this particular amendment bill that has been passed in the Lok Sabha, that talks about amending the nature of this particular act. Now what does it say? So essentially what it hinting as what is being told by the central government is that now if you want to go ahead and say create a forest of your own on a particular land, you are allowed to do that. Okay. Initially you would have to say approach the forest department. At the same time, the bill is saying that suppose if you have say railway lines, okay, so a particular area around the railway lines, you can go ahead and create forests now. Okay. Suppose if this is your international border, up to 100 kilometers from the international border, all right, you can go ahead and create infrastructure now. Why? Because again, you are looking at say a massive push that is coming in say the defense infrastructure. However, one of the problems was what? That most of it is forest land. And so to build a particular highway or a tunnel or a rasta, whatever infrastructure is needed for say the army to function, that is being hindered because again the nature of the land is forest land, you cannot go ahead and create anything at all. So this exemption has been created, that right from the international border up until 100 kilometers inside, no need to take any sanction, go ahead and create the infra. Are you able to get that? This is being done in conjunction with the defense upgradation, the infrastructure upgradation that we read about, to clear that bottleneck. All right, let's go forward. So the Forest Conservation Act, now from 1980 to 2023, only 1 million hectares have been diverted for non-forest purposes. Initially, this number was close to I think 4.5 million hectares. Do you realize? So because of this act coming, there has been this change that no more say you are having to divert forest land, essential forest land, for say commercial purposes or for non-forest purposes. All right. However, there are issues and challenges. From the mains perspective, an extremely important slide. It gives you the fodder material to write for your answer. What are the challenges? That this protection is available only for areas that are marked out as forest in a particular time period. Okay. So which has been marked out as forest? Clear. No problems. However, prior to that date, nothing, or after that date, no changes. Good morning, Mansu. I hope you guys are getting this clear, okay? That this exemption is being given, that only available for areas already marked out as forest in central or state government records to this particular time period. Okay. Now come to this important case, the Godavarman Thirumulpad case. Very, very important. Okay. So what's the whole nature of this argument here? the Supreme Court expanded the scope of this protection that is given to forests. Suppose you have a private land, you have gone ahead and created a particular orchard or a group of say trees, woody trees. Would they be classified as forest? Obviously no. But then the Supreme Court in the Godavarman case says that well, forests just not need to be taken at face value, say by a particular definition, because again there is no uniform definition of forests in India. Alright. So states have their own definition, different states have their own definition of forest. Okay, a national definition is provided, say in terms of say the canopy cover and this and that, but then that is not uniformly applied. So the Supreme Court says that even if you have say a bunch of woody trees on your own private land, they are covered under the dictionary meaning of forest, which means they ought to be given the same status, the same level of protection as the other forests. Okay, this was the Godavarman case. Very, very important, very crucial. Okay, so even areas not formally notified as forests, but conforming to the dictionary meaning of forests are to be protected. So your ancestral land or anywhere, fallow land, suddenly you have some vegetation come up. Okay, not waste vegetation, some woody structures come up. Definition of forest applies there, even though they are not on forest land. Clear ho rahi hai? Okay. So as there is no all-encompassing definition of a forest, the Apex Court directed states to define and demarcate forests using their own criteria. That the states were to determine the definition of forests as per their own say geography, their own topography. However, what you realize is that even since 1996 up until 2023, close to 20 states have taken no action on this. Okay. That this uniform definition of forest or even a state-specific definition of forest has not been provided yet. Alright. So this has become an impediment. When it comes to say now you are going ahead and creating infra, if there is no particular definition of forest, if there is no particular policy in place, how are you going to go ahead and do it? Are you able to get this clearly? Okay. So let's go forward now. So the changes, look at the changes now. Now the Act says that it would apply to lands notified in any government record as forest on or after 1980. Prior to 1980, whatever the character of it was there, well, that is not to be taken into consideration. This whole thing becomes only a part after 1980. Okay. Then the whole Act applies, whatever amendments are coming, then they apply on that particular land. So the Act, where does it not apply? If notified, forest land was legally diverted between 80 and 96 for non-forest use. See the word legally. If due process was followed in the diversion of a particular forest land for say commercial purpose, no problems. Rehne do, exempt hai. Okay. To forest land situated 100 km away from IB to be used for strategic projects of national importance. In fact, the term that is being used, and be aware of this term, the term that is being used is strategic linear projects. Okay. I will give you a brief write-up on this also. Very, very important, guys. Okay. Because again, this has been used for the first time in a government document, this particular term, strategic linear projects. So what are strategic linear projects? All of that information will be coming up, an exhaustive discussion on it. But then for us, for the time being, the understanding is that those projects that are going to help in say terms of national security, creating capacity, the local based infrastructure for say creating that ability to withstand or go ahead, that sort of capability wherever it is being created, that is strategic project of linear importance. A whole class will follow on this, a very important concept. Okay. So this is what it's saying, that under the IB from the international border up until 100 kilometers, for strategic projects of strategic linear projects, you are going to be exempted. And to land ranging from 5 to 10 hectares from security and defense projects. Okay, all of that will be cleared. Essentially, infrastructure creation is the focus here. Okay, so amending the name of the Act also has become an issue. So the Forest Conservation and Augmentation Act is the proposed name. Okay, which in Hindi becomes Van Samvardhan and something. So the problem is that this name is not all encompassing. The southern states will not grasp or will not be able to, because again it's a Hindi term, it's a Sanskrit term that has been introduced. So the southern states will have a problem understanding, because the meaning of the act is important. Same problem with the northeast also, that it's a Hindi centric name, that probably a neutral name which would have, say, served the aspirations of the whole entire geography of India would be better. Okay, so Van Sanrakshan Evam Samvardhan Adhiniyam, translated as Forest Conservation and Augmentation from the existing Forest Conservation Act. So this Hindi centric name is also being criticized. Okay, so these are the changes that are happening in the Forest Conservation Act. You are looking at these three that you need to be remembering, in fact, taking a note of these three, the A, B and C. Okay, just note these three, your whole topic will be clear. That you are looking at exemption for defense, security projects, you are looking at the international border, and you are looking at this exemption if it was diverted legally between 80 and 86. Okay, you are going to remember the Govardhan case here, Godavarman case, alright, very, very important again, because this is akin to what, say, you read for, say, Kesavananda Bharati case, you know. So all of that, when it comes to this topic, has the same relevance. So you have to make a note of this particular case. If you are writing mains, include this in your answer, alright, that the SC used this case to increase the definition of forests, that no more were forests just limited to, say, structures on forest land, but also the definition of forest was to be applied wherever a bunch of woody trees were present. Okay, so from the conservation point of view, this was like an inclusive directive by the Supreme Court. All right. Okay, so now the significance of the changes. What you're going to look at is private parties who will come in and restore patches. You're also looking at private parties who will engage in infrastructure development along these areas that I told you about, which means the environmental angle becomes important for us to consider. That development versus ecological sustainability. Okay, what are you going to prioritize? All right. Earlier, a private plantation or a reforested land that wasn't officially marked out as forest could be retrospectively earmarked, forcing the developer of a plantation to lose rights. Do you realize this? Suppose if you had an ancestral land, and full forested orchard, tree, or you have all teak, weak, everything there, right? And then one fine day the forest department, the DFO comes and says, you know what, now this is going to be forest land from back date such and such year. You lose your rights. How are you going to feel, right? So this is the problem that is being looked to address here. It will stop states from apportioning forest tracts meant for plantations. In fact, here on, if you are going to divert forest land for any other non-forest purpose, you have to take the permission of the union government. Okay. In fact, the MOEFCC is the nodal here, right? So you have to take the permission from the ministry if you are going to divert forest land for non-forest purpose, which means again states' ability to divert land for their own revenue-centric purposes will be curtailed. The counterpoint, attack on federalism. State ka hak chhin rahe ho aap. Clear? Okay, I have a question here. Sir, if the act is implemented, would it not affect the tribals who live in their lands entirely on the border, especially in the northeastern Indian states who are given a special status? In fact, this is a very fair criticism, Lekam. It also talks about the protection of under the schedules, the 5th and 6th schedule, you know, when you talk about that. When you talk about PESA Act, there is again that whole conversation around that also. That how is it going to degrade, say, local self-governance? Will it, say, eat away the powers of the local bodies? That's a very fair conversation. Sir, can increase monoculture forest like in Himalaya pines as done by British? Yeah, but then monoculture is not always desired, you know, because it leads to lack of genetic diversity eventually. Plus, you are relying too much, you are putting all your eggs in one basket. And given that climate change is happening, you want to have, say, a large variety of resistant varieties, not just, say, good things to look at. You need actual practical wale plants and, say, growth, vegetation. PESA Act, yes. PESA Act is there. 5th schedule ki baat kar raha hai. Lekam is very clear, very clear in the whole outlook that yes, this will infringe to a very large extent on the rights of the tribals. Okay. And so the problem will arise with when, I'll tell you when. Say the 100 kilometers IB2 inwards, like Lekam is saying, you have a lot of tribal communities that are living there and they have their own, say, locally reserved forest. Now what happens if an infrastructure is to be created through that? You know, are you looking at, say, the traditional rights of these individuals, these communities getting infringed? Yes, that is going to happen. All right, so we'll keep an eye out on that. That will be in fact one of the primary criticisms in the coming days. Let it get passed in the Rajya Sabha, and then we shall see the final document, the final act that will be published in the Gazette. Clause by clause, if we take a look, we'll be able to understand there must be some catch. Okay, they can't completely go ahead and like dilute the 5th schedule. You know, the rights of the tribals have to be taken. In fact, there are zones and committees and constitutional bodies that take care of that. So obviously that's impossible. But we'll keep a keen eye out on this topic. Okay, and it will help in infra development. ये तो आपको समझ में आ ही गया होगा. All right, let's look at this question, guys. This was again from the UPSC PYQ, by the way. Okay, this is a UPSC PYQ. All right, UPSC in fact has previously asked, as Deepak mentions here, you know, the PESA. Very, very important. UPSC has asked this on several different occasions, in fact, not just in the prelims, but also in the mains. All right. So, as per the recent amendments to the Indian Forest Act, forest dwellers have the right to fell the bamboos grown on forest areas. In fact, they have, look at this statement. I told you, bamboo is a grass treated as a tree. Okay. And so, under the Indian Forest Act of 1927, you cannot go ahead and fell trees, which means bamboo can't be felled. Okay. So, under the IFP, it can't be done. This is incorrect. Give me the answers for the rest ones. Okay. Identify the correct statements. Leave all the answers for me in a, like you have been doing, leave an answer for me like this, easier for me to collate, get the answers for you. Okay. So answer this question, talk about the forest, the Scheduled Tribes Act. Okay. It talks about, yes, we discussed all of this. Okay. MFP, minor forest produce. This is one question or a type of this question that you should prepare, whenever you are given a particular concept, at least in terms of environment, know the examples straight away. So for in today's class, when we discuss mangroves, we will discuss plant adaptations. So the question should straight away come to you, what are plant adaptations? How do different plants adapt? So, you ought to have this sort of approach when you are preparing, because these questions are frequently asked. They expect you to know evidences of the concepts that you know, applications of the concepts that you know. Just the theory is not enough. All right. So timber, honey, tussar, kendu leaves and elephant tusk. Which of the above are classified as minor forest produce? Okay. Make a note of the word that I told you, that MFP is to do with plant-based. Therein lies your answer. Okay. So plant-based products or goods can be taken out of the forest by local communities, tribals, forest dwellers, those who live on the fringes of the forest. So therein lies your answer for this. Okay. C. Article 51AG, protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forest and wildlife of the country. And Article 48A, protect and improve the natural environment, including forest and wildlife. Directly from the Constitution, I have picked it up. One is a duty, one is a DPSP. You will let me know which is correctly matched. Okay. One of them is a duty, fundamental duty, and one of them is a part of the DPSP. तो ये भी आप मुझे बताएंगे कौन सा है. वैसे तो आर्टिकल समझ के देख के आपको पता आ जाना चाहिए. Okay. All right. So this closes, by the way, guys. Today is what, 27th. So this is again 3 more days you're looking at, and on the 31st we are closing admissions, the evening batch, the second batch. Okay. I'm part of the English team, the English cohort. Okay. And I'll be primarily in charge of your geography, your environment, and your current affairs. The current affairs will continue here every morning 8 a.m. But if you're a part of this, you obviously get access to some special material, special handouts, notes. Okay. And it's an entire process, hand-holding process. This answer writing that we do here, and to which I'm thankful, most of you are sending me answers. Yesterday I had around 45 answers, which is why it's taking me time to get back to each one of you. But then there you get the feedback ASAP. Okay. So go ahead, if you are really serious about next year, because you need to take a call. Okay. Do you want UPSC as a passion or a hobby? If it's a passion, if you're doing it yourself, all the best. Reach out to me for any strategy help. I'll be more than happy to guide you. But if you really want concentrated, focused help, like a missile is guided. So there is someone who is in charge of, metering the missile. So that's what the work we do here. We make sure that your orientation towards the examination is correct. Okay. That the strategy is a holistic concept, but your day-to-day progress has to be monitored, evaluated, because again, it's a scientific process. This whole preparation is completely scientific. Obviously, nothing guarantees the success. No one can do that. But the best preparation, the best way that you have prepared can be, say, guaranteed or assured. And this is the focus of the P2I course. Okay. So this is again beginning on the 31st. Go ahead, use this code if you want to really get under my wings and make sure that I am a part of your preparation, because again, then I get allotted to your batches. Okay. So the way we approach concepts here, right from the basics, take it up a notch and bring it up to the mains level, is what the focus of this particular program is also. Okay. All right, cloudburst. So many people have perished, so much of life loss, property loss in the last, say, 7, 10, 15 days. And if you have been following the news, well, you will know that again, this is happening not just in Himachal, this is also happening in the northeast. This is happening just recently in Raigad in Maharashtra. Okay. What is common in all these three areas that I told you right now? Okay. The Himalayas, the northeast, and say in Western Ghats. What is the common factor here? You have features, geographical features that trap and block clouds. Okay. So straight away, let's jump into this topic. Very interesting. And today we'll look at the geography behind it. So the IMD website, again, I just straight away go to the Sarkari website only. Take it up, everything from there. So the IMD website tells me that if you have, say, 100 millimeter or more rain, okay, within 60 minutes in a small area, roughly 20 to 30 square kilometers. Three criteria that you have to remember. 100 millimeter of rain within 60 minutes, okay, and in a small area. If that happens, that satisfies the criteria of a cloudburst. Now you might be thinking 100 millimeters is quite not a lot. Well, it's a huge amount. Well, it's going to flood everything along its way. And the more important part is that this happens in 60 minutes. Now, UPSC aspirants, think the mains perspective here. Here is a problem that you have, okay, that is going to affect these areas, Himalayas, Northeast, Western Ghats. Your response time is 60 minutes. Okay, why? Once again, because we are not scientifically as developed as we think we are, because there is no way you can predict a cloudburst. You can predict heavy rainfall, but to predict a cloudburst, you are going to need an extensive network of radars and Doppler methods and all of that, which is going to be cost intensive. So straight away, if you are a commissioner of a particular district, if this is the information that is provided to you, 60 minutes response time, पता नहीं कब कहाँ होगा, आपको बस हम बारिश का forecast दे सकते हैं. What is the problem that you realize? That rescue and evacuation is a problem. In fact, getting the word out is a problem. So which means that you need to have preemptive measures. So when I, as the IMD director, send you a particular report to the commissioner saying, you know what, your particular area will have heavy rainfall, your first target should be to evacuate people beforehand. Okay, that's the relief and rescue method you're looking for cloudburst. Otherwise, nothing else is possible. Now, cloudburst is a cause, okay, which causes several other things. The effects are variable. So again, if you are my commissioner of my district, the effects that you are looking at, number 1, landslide, number 2, flash flood, okay, mudslides, in fact, land cavings, all of that are effects that come out of a cloudburst. So again, relief, response time, negligible, there's zero chances. How are you going to prepare for all of that in 60 minutes? Okay. So, they occur over the Himalayas, the Western Ghats and the northeastern hill states of India. Normally, they require a certain sense of a barrier, a geographical barrier is needed for the clouds that have come to finally form into a cloudburst. We'll discuss that also, that it is much more likely to take place, say, in front of a steep hill or a plateau. Okay. Normally over plains, not so much of chances. Clear? So tall cumulonimbus clouds, okay, causing cloudbursts can occur very quickly, again in about 30 minutes. Look at the time factor. Geography तो आपको ऐसे ही याद रहेगा, NCERT तो आप 100 बार पढ़ोगे. But the problem here is what? The response time is very limited, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. The clouds form in 30, the whole process is over in say 60 to 2 hours. Alright. Now, obviously, satellites are just not going to detect this for you, because if you wanted, say, a satellite for this particular area, and again the area that is under your commissionerate, under your district, you are going to require a massive web of satellites. इतने पैसे कहाँ से आएंगे? ठीक है? So this is because the resolution is much smaller than the area. So you straight away can't do this. There is no way you can even forecast it. All the information the IMD will give you is तुम्हारे यहाँ भारी वर्षा होने वाली है बस. ठीक है? Let's look at the process now. So what happens? 2 minutes or less, you will understand. Monsoon laden winds. Monsoon laden winds are what? They carry a lot of moisture. तभी तो बारिश होता है. So these winds, okay, let me get a red pen first. So the monsoon laden warm convective winds, here they come. All right. Now these winds are fast. Now what happens? Once they hit this feature, rocky feature, this hill, they start going up. You know that when it rises in height, in altitude, what happens there? It is eventually cooling down. In fact, you must have heard of the term adiabatic lapse rate, okay, which is, say, for every kilometer that you rise up, you lose the temperature inside by around, say, 6 to 6.5 degrees centigrade. Okay. You also know that cold air, okay, does not like moisture, which is why, say, in winters, why does your skin become so, why do you have to put moisturizer? Because it's cold, the moisture retaining capacity of the body is less, which is why you get these white spots. You put moisturizer, no? गर्मी में वो प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है, ऐसे ही इतना पसीना बह रहा है भाई साहब. ठीक है. So this is the first thing now. So once you start going up, you are losing, adiabatic lapse rate is happening, you are losing temperature. At the same time, what happens is that these clouds that they form, okay, they are getting pushed upwards. Eventually, when this feature comes, the rainfall follows. Now what happens in cloudburst? The speed of this is so high, the warm convective currents that are coming up the valley slope, the hill slope, that this rainfall that is supposed to happen, which is called orographic rainfall, by the way. Okay. So this orographic rainfall, oro is essentially rocky feature, a hill feature, a geographical feature. So a rainfall originating out of this interaction between a cloud and a hill feature or a plateau feature. So this is called orographic rainfall. But in this term, what happens is because the speed, the velocity of these particular wind is so high, that the rainfall that is supposed to happen on the slopes, well, it gets pushed upwards. Okay. So you have a particular cloud, all right. Now it has the rain droplets that were supposed to form. More such is being added by the incoming warm wind. So you have the size of the raindrops that become big and big now. They are getting bigger. At the same time, because they are going up, you also realize that adiabatic lapse rate is taking place, which means it's getting colder, which means its ability to hold moisture is getting lower and lower, lower and lower. Eventually what happens? There comes a moment when the carrying capacity, when the whole capacity of this cloud to hold that moisture exceeds its ability. So what happens? It's like you opened a tap. The whole water of the cloud comes down with large rain droplets. And all of that happens in, say, less than 90, 120 minutes, 3 hours maximum. Imagine the level of water that comes down at you, you know. जो बारिश पहले गिर जाना था वो एक साथ अब गिर रहा है. Yes, this recurring deposit that the cumulonimbus cloud had, all of that on the hill slopes, normally in valleys, foothills of the hills, and thus you have all people on this side affected. Okay, so straight away you're looking at landslides that will happen. You're looking at, say, land cavings, flash floods. Okay. And as you as district commissioner, you can't prepare. How will you prepare? The only thing you can do is evacuate people. Other than that, the larger change that you can do is, say, have housing or have, say, communities that are probably best designed to withstand such massive impact force. Okay. That you have a windward side and a leeward side. So probably go ahead and have more habitation on the leeward side, but then that again wouldn't suit because it's drier. Agriculture कहाँ करोगे अगर बारिश ही नहीं होता है तो? Do you understand that? That's the problem. Practical problem क्या है कि मुझे तो खेती बाड़ी करना है. खेती बाड़ी किधर होगा? Windward side में. अब flash flood किधर हो रहा? Windward side में. What can you do as the district commissioner? Nothing much. Okay, nothing much. Tell me, you guys tell me. You guys are preparing for the civil services. What would you do if you were given this problem? If you were, say, the DC of Uttar Kashi or someplace, Solan in Himachal Pradesh or Raigad in Maharashtra, what would you do? You know, except evacuate people. Hope that this doesn't happen. That the warm convective air पहले ही orographic rainfall हो जाए तो बेहतर है. अगर ऊपर चढ़ता गया तब तो पक्का होगा. Clear? Okay, do you have any questions for me, guys? So this is the whole I have built a flow chart for you so that it's easier for you to remember. So your warm convective air rises up, adiabatic lapse rate kicks in, which means 6 to 6.5 degrees centigrade drop in temperature per kilometer. Thereafter, orographic rainfall should follow. However, if that does not happen, then the moisture in the cloud exceeds its capacity, big raindrops are formed, eventually that balloon of that cumulonimbus cloud bursts, and thus you have, say, life and property that is threatened in the hill slopes. Now, why does this not happen on the plains, or the chances of this happening, say, in the plains is less? Because you need a feature like this, either a hill or a plateau for this to happen. Alright. In plains also it happens in isolated cases, but very rare. Ideally you find it happening in, say, hills, plateaus. India में कहाँ है hills plateau ज़्यादा? एक अपना इधर down south, Deccan, और एक ऊपर Himalaya or northeast. That is the area where it happens. That's how you remember. Okay. Okay, give me the answer for this question also. Question D. Okay, which of the above may be caused by cloud bursts? Cause effect हमेशा याद रखोगे आप please. Especially when you are reading geography. Okay. Whenever you read a particular formation or a particular activity or a particular ocean current, whatever is happening, whatever you're reading about, make sure that you know the cause-effect relationship. Half your questions in geography MCQs can be solved if you know the cause-effect relationship. Okay, not many students use this trick. They rather remember by force. Don't do that. Just remember the cause-effect relationship for most of the things. It applies easily. Geography is all science, in fact. Okay, coming to mangroves now. 26th, yesterday, the International Day for Conservation of Mangroves. Alright, so mangroves, unique ecosystem, no? You must have all read about it. The most uniquest of ecosystems that you have, you find them in intertidal zones, which means where the land and the sea meets. Okay, they have extensive root network. In fact, this is the reason why they are so useful to mankind. Their extensive root networks help them just not protect themselves, but the land behind them, and we'll see how. Alright, characterized by dense salt-tolerant trees, so they are halophytes, which means they love the marine ecosystem, the brackish water or saline water, they'll exist. Okay, yaad rakhenge aap that they can exist both in brackish plus saline water. Okay, normally you will find them in the tropical and subtropical regions. They cannot withstand cold temperature. Okay, in fact, if the temperature drops to, say, somewhere around 0 to 4, yeah, the threat, they are completely directly under threat. Okay, so freezing ecosystem unse nahi hota. Put them in water with low oxygen content, they will survive. Okay, extremely resistant variety, mangroves. Okay, sheltered coastal areas, estuaries, lagoons, tidal flats. Now, the adaptation that mangroves have, okay, most important is that they have pneumatophores. Whereas they have these openings. So if this is the sea surface, okay, if this is the mangrove, the opening is here. You know, it's above the sea surface. It's like a nose that it has, it allows it to breathe. Okay. So what are adaptations now? So, very easy example. If you go to the hilly areas, you know, or you look at, say, dogs in the hilly areas, you will find that they have thick coats, thick fur. Why is that happened? Because the nature has provided that adaptation to that particular living entity to withstand the local hostile environment. That it has adapted its own physiological being in consonance with the environment. Okay, that happens in plants also. So, suppose in water arid areas, the arid areas, you will find that plants have, say, thorns. Okay, to reduce transpiration, they'll have smaller leaves or hard leaves. Alright, all of these are what? Adaptations. You have plants that look to grow only towards the sun, phototropism. Okay, adaptation. So, in dense forest, yes, where the sunlight is unable to percolate up till the ground level, this adaptation of phototropism allows the plant to find its way to the sun and create food for itself through photosynthesis. So these are adaptations. Plants have them, animals have them. Okay. Hair on the body, excessive hair, adaptation. Dog having, say, small ears or big tongues, you know, adaptation. Allows them to control their body temperature. Do you realize this? So adaptation for in terms of mangroves, unique root systems called prop roots or pneumatophores. Extremely important again. So look at this now. This you must have seen on several different occasions. So I've just used this GIF. So look at this particular wave that comes in from the other side. Okay, let's go back to look at the wave, the intensity of the wave that coming in. Then you have mangroves with the root system here. And then look at the area behind it, the stillness of the water. Why is that happening? Because the wave energy that comes in is soaked by this particular entity here with its extensive network of roots. The larger application of this, so you have a huge tsunami coming in, especially say consider in the Bay of Bengal area. Yes, you have say Phylin coming in and so many other cyclones have come in. Those people who are from say the northeast or West Bengal here, you will know, Amphan and Phylin and so many cyclones have come. So how is it that say earlier you had problems, but now it is, say you don't find large scale destruction happening. Why is that happening? Because extensive conservation, protection of the mangroves, their ability to withstand such forces from the sea, protecting the land behind them is of extreme importance, which means they provide coastal stability, right? They also provide ecological stability. How? Well, again, they store carbon. Blue carbon is the concept that you should know. Okay, blue carbon. Now, what is blue carbon? So, you have these leaves of the mangroves. Okay, they store carbon between them, in them in fact. And so, when they get old, when they die, eventually what happens? They sink to the bottom of the sea, carrying the carbon with them. And now that carbon has been stored in the sea floor. Okay, that is called blue carbon. So mangroves help in the storage of carbon. Mangroves help in the purification of water also. Okay, that their extensive root network purifies the water of pollutants, which is why they provide the suitable ecosystem for coastal for coral reefs. Okay, so large scale variety of services are provided by the mangroves ecosystem. Okay, so you're looking at ecological stability, coastal stability, like I told you, water purification, especially useful for coral reefs, for corals. Okay, blue carbon, and finally you have that they support a huge network of flora and fauna. Wherever you will find that a huge number of say either migratory birds or animals, insects, reptiles, different even types of plants, all of that are able to exist. Because mangroves have the halophyte, they are going to be able to sustain a lot in their ecosystem. So the Royal Bengal tiger, okay, the flagship, the species, the predator species of India, yes, lives in the mangroves area. Why? It has enough predator prey there for say an apex predator like tiger to sustain itself in a mangrove ecosystem. Do you realize? Khana to khata hoga na, kya khata hoga? Which means that the prey base exists, which means extensive flora and fauna exist. Yesterday's class or day before yesterday's class, we discussed that the presence of a tiger in a forest indicates that the health of the forest is top class. So the fact that you find a large scale population of Royal Bengal tiger in Sundarban should tell you that the health of the Sundarban is top class. How is that happening? Mangroves. Clear? Alright. So let's quickly identify where do you find mangroves in India. Number one, you have the Sundarbans, obviously. Okay, here, this particular whole area, Sundarbans between India and Bangladesh. You're also looking at Bhitarkanika. Which state is Bhitarkanika, guys? The Bhitarkanika mangroves in Odisha. You are looking at the Krishna Godavari basin. Again, extensive network of mangroves. Number 4, you are looking also in Tamil Nadu, the Pichavaram. Okay. Thereafter, Andaman and Nicobar, again known for its mangroves. Gujarat, okay, again known for its mangroves. Gujarat, you are looking at Kutch and Jamnagar district, okay, just in case if you want to know. Okay. So, which state has the highest? In fact, you find it in Kerala also, the backwaters of Kerala. Completely missed my mind. In the backwaters of Kerala also you find mangroves. Okay, good. Odisha state exams, well done, good. So now can someone tell me which state has the highest mangroves? Obviously West Bengal. Number 2 पे कौन है? बताइए. Think, look at this graph and tell me, where do you think number 2 will be? The whole map is color marked. West Bengal is number 1. Okay, Sundarbans. Gujarat is number 2. And Andaman and Nicobar is number 3. Know the top 3, more than enough. Know where else it is found. Yesterday's class we discussed, no? Gulf of Mannar also has mangroves, where you find dugongs and sea cucumbers. Okay. So once again, the expanse of this throughout the coastline of India is on both sides. Eastern seaboard also, western seaboard also. ठीक है? Mangroves याद रखेंगे आप. बहुत ही important है. And especially if you want to write a good answer, say for the tiger conservation and habitats, mention this, that the presence of a tiger is straight away indication that the health of the forest is exceptional. Case in point, Sundarbans. ठीक है? Correct answer, Mandeep. बढ़िया answer. Good answers. ठीक है? Okay. Let's look at this question also. Mangrove seeds are buoyant and suited to water dispersal. Again, the dispersal of seeds. Yes, birds disperse seeds. You and I disperse seeds. Water also disperses seeds. Does the mangrove seeds get dispersed by water? सोच के बताओ मुझे. They are resistant to freezing temperature, are they? I discussed this in class today. And mangroves can survive in low oxygen levels. Just apply your common sense. Does salt water have high oxygen or low oxygen? इतना सोच लो, आंसर मिल जाएगा आपको. Identify the incorrect statement for me. You will leave all these answers in the comment box. Also, adaptation by plants, because pneumatophores that we discussed today, pneumatophores, yes, the noses of, say, mangroves, again a type of plant adaptation. So what are the other forms of adaptation? Forming poison for defense against predators, developing thorns and spines, phototropism. Which of the above can be considered adaptation by plants? ठीक है? That will be your question. Now, the last topic for the day, which we will complete in less than 5 minutes, last evening in fact. No, in fact this morning, I woke up at around 3:15 और मैं ऐसे Twitter देख रहा था. And suddenly I find around 4 AM that Reuters breaks this news that a coup d'etat has been carried out in Niger. Okay. So I straight away knew that, well, half my students will get confused between Niger and Nigeria. So first let's go there. Let's look at the map. कहाँ पे हुआ है coup? Okay. So this is again a landlocked country that you are looking at. And the ones that are marked in red, okay, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso and Chad. Well, यहाँ पे in the last say last 7 to 8, 10, 12 months, coup d'etat have been carried out, which means the current government has been overthrown and replaced by a military person, a dictator. So why is it that this area is looking at a lot of coup? इतना regional instability क्यों है? Okay, so like I told you in the beginning of the class, this whole area has now become the next playground of international politics. Okay, you have multiple players with multiple agendas completely going ahead and working in this area. Okay, so first, that reason is important for us to understand. Thereafter, make a note of, when you're looking at the map today, look at the countries that are around this area. Okay, because this is one area that not many of you will be good at. Okay, it's commonly ignored, the West African region essentially. Go ahead and take a look at a deep dive into this particular map area here first, and know that the region from this till here, okay, this region, this entire region, which encompasses, say, the Sahara Desert, you know, this entire region has a particular name. What is the name? Which is important for you to know from the exam perspective. The name of that region is the Sahel region. Okay, so again, this is a question for you, but I had to introduce this because this is what the UPSC asks. What is the particular region called? The Sahel region. Why is it called the Sahel region? What's the importance? Let's discuss it. So you see this area, okay, what you're looking at is an agro-geographic region called the Sahel region, all right, exists between and the Red Sea, okay, and what you're looking at, the Atlantic and the Red Sea, and what you're looking at this entire region is mostly, at least till the western part, is to do with Sahara, which means extreme poverty, lack of education, okay, harsh extreme climate. In fact, even animals are quite limited. You know, you have only onyx and the North African cheetah that you ought to remember. बाकी सब चंगू मंगू एनिमल्स, उतने बड़े इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, ठीक है. सो अगेन अ सेमी एरिड रीजन ऑफ ग्लोबल इंस्टेबिलिटी, यू आर फाइंडिंग पॉलिटिकल प्रॉब्लम्स देयर, food problems again, and a playground of the major global powers. So the Sahel region becomes important topic for the UPSC aspirant. ठीक है, correct. Jamkhandi, proud Jamkhandi. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Sahel region. Okay. So go ahead, answer this question also for me. Where does the Sahel region span from? What are the two seas that are the two extremes of the Sahel region? Okay. ये थोड़ा नोट कर लो मैपिंग के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से, क्योंकि इंपॉर्टेंट रहेगा. ओके, इट्स नॉट इम्पॉर्टेंट फॉर यू टू रिमेंबर कि किस कंट्री में कू हुआ नहीं हुआ, दैट्स immaterial. What you ought to do remember is the geographical agroclimatic region classification. What's the area called? What are the major hills? What are the seas, estuary, lagoon, river, all of that. ठीक है? Okay, so you leave the answer for me for A to G. A to G का answer please leave for me in the comment box. I'll appreciate the answers. And there's no mains question for today. Okay, I wanted you guys to first go ahead and answer yesterday's question. It's extremely important. Okay, bear in mind international relations that we discussed yesterday, specifically the India-Sri Lanka, बहुत ही important topic है. Okay, you cannot be expected to know IR, global IR, if you do not know, say, India's relation with Sri Lanka or Bhutan or Nepal or Bangladesh, Myanmar. ये तो बहुत बेसिक्स है. उसके बाद ही आप फिर मुझे ग्लोबल साउथ और ये वो सब बता सकते हो. If you are unable to tell me what MOUs came up or what were the areas of convergence between India and Sri Lanka, you know, it's problem area. So go ahead, answer that question for me. For those of you who haven't sent me the answers, I will be responding to whatever pending answers are there by this evening 6:37 p.m. All right. And if there are any questions for me, reach out to me on my email ID or join me on my Telegram channel. ठीक है? All right. Okay. Thank you for your time, guys. I hope you learned out of the 3-4 topics that we did today. If it was beneficial to you, please go ahead and leave me a like. Do consider leaving me a like. It will be of immense benefit to me also. And I hope that you leave me all the answers in the comment box. If there is any particular feedback, yesterday's topic, we had 3 individuals who left me feedback. I don't have your names, but I'm thankful to you for your statements, for your feedback. I'll try and work harder for your expectations. If there's anything different that I can do to serve your interests better, please do let me know in the comment box. I'm more than happy to take on suggestions. ठीक है? Thanks. Okay, Deepak, I look forward to reading your answer. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. Have a productive day. And I shall see you tomorrow morning with another 3-4 topics, one of which will be a deep dive for mains.